I love the look of luxury, but knowing that I got it at a great price. And I feel like you're like me too. And that's why I know you're going to love Quince. Quince is my go-to for luxury essentials at affordable prices. I get DMs all the time. Where did you get that sweater? I'm telling you, I got it at Quince. You know why? They offer high quality items at prices within reach. And the best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. So they do this by partnering directly with top factories. So Quince cuts the cost of the middleman and then passes the savings on to us. And the best part, it only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And who doesn't love that? In fact, the thing you need to get right now are the toasted almond silk pajamas. It's a beautiful gift for someone in your life or just for yourself. So give yourself the luxury you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/KKC for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/KKC to get your free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/KateCasey. Oh, don't mind me. I'm just looking out the window at my new Tangelo tree and my Meyer lemon bush. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers, including me? They have all the plants that your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Plus, their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures that your plants arrive happy and healthy to your door. Plus, you get support from trained plant experts. They're on call to help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to care for them. This spring, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off select plants and other deals. And listeners to this show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code KateCasey at checkout. That's an additional 15% off fastgrowingtrees.com using the code KateCasey at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code KateCasey. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use Kate Casey to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey. I hope that you're having a great midweek, and I hope that you've checked out my 2 earlier episodes this week. I had one about Stephen Collins. He was the Reverend Camden on Seventh Heaven, which was this massive hit on the CW, a family-centered show. But there were secrets behind Stephen Collins' life. It's part of the Hollywood Demons series, which began this week, and there are 6 episodes in the series that air every week. And then Wednesday's episode, I asked Jonathan Mark to talk to me about the Bachelor finale and behind-the-scenes stories, which were hilarious. But we also discussed 2 disappearance stories, both of young boys. One you may not be familiar with because it is a story that occurred in 1912. But the other one is the subject of one of the best documentaries I've ever watched called The Lost Sons, which is now available on Hulu and Amazon Prime. And it tells the story of Paul Franzak. The first time I was made familiar with this story was in October of 2013 when I saw Barbara Walter report on it on 2020. And I would time to time check in to see if there were any developments and was elated when I found out that they were making a documentary. You can go back and listen to episode 398 because I interviewed Paul Franzak. And I have found over time that it is one of those episodes that people ask me a lot about. And if someone's looking for something really fascinating to watch, especially teenagers and above, I find that this story in particular really grabs their attention. So make sure that you listen to that. That aired on Wednesday. And of course, at the end of it, I asked Jonathan what he thought of both of those disappearance cases. This week, I'm also going to feature an interview with Carlos King, who is a prolific reality TV producer. And we talk about the season finale of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And we also talk about this season of Real Housewives of Atlanta. You can start watching it. If you have not done so, you will enjoy it because we have new cast members. You know, as I always say, it's easy to get tired of the same people all the time. Their lives don't change all that much. You can throw a bunch of dinner parties, but it's still the same boring stories. So make sure you check out the new episodes. And I can't wait to hear his info because he's lived in Atlanta a long time and he really seems to know the backstory on so many different people. So make sure you check that out. And then also, I'm going to be featuring in a lot of Saturday series episodes the unthinkable, improbable stories that so many listeners have shared with me about family secrets. So that's going to be great too. And I've got an upcoming interview with a famed photographer whose photos of celebrities have graced so many different magazines. And then there is 2 doc-series that are coming up in the beginning of April that we are going to want to unravel. And I think I've mentioned I'm going to be interviewing Elizabeth Smart next month too. So a lot is in store. Make sure that you are also in the Facebook group, because the Reality Life with KKC Facebook group has such smart people with astute observations. And we are talking about a lot of stuff besides reality TV and documentaries about pop culture, great books we're reading. In fact, I'm going to add another book to my book club by Graydon Carter, who was the editor of Vanity Fair in the most glorious years. And so he's got a new memoir out that will be on my list of things to absolutely read. Oh, and lastly, make sure you check out my Patreon for my bonus episodes, because this week I dropped an episode about a lot of different things, including why I think Jennifer Aniston had that photo taken with Pedro Pascal, Garcelle leaving Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and much, much more. So Patreon, patreon.com/KKC. So this episode is about a con artist. Boy, everyone knows that I'm familiar with con artists. I had a con artist stepdad. I think my dad was a con artist too at some level. And over the course of over 1,200 episodes, 8 years, I've done a fair share of covering docs, reality shows that have a bit of grifting. I speak to the episode that I did about Tinder Swindler on Netflix as a great example. If you're looking for a con artist doc, that's a great one to watch, Tinder Swindler. Well, here's another one on Netflix. Now, con artists deceive and manipulate people to gain trust, and then they exploit that trust for their own personal gain. And it's often through schemes that involve financial fraud or other forms of deception. And what they do is they build relationships with their victims, and they often find common ground, complimenting them and appearing most trustworthy and, of course, charming. They identify and manipulate people's weaknesses, and that makes them more susceptible to their schemes. They use deceptive and manipulation tactics, including false promises. They offer unrealistic returns on investment or other opportunities. They pressure victims to make quick decisions to avoid missing out or because there's an impending deadline. They claim to have influential friends or testimonials to build credibility. And they adapt their behavior and language to match their targets, making them feel like they understand them, make them feel comfortable. And they also ask questions that lead victims to agree with their claims. As far as psychological traits, they often exhibit dark personality traits, including psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellism, which allows them to manipulate and deceive others, and they have absolutely no remorse. And that brings me to Con Mom, which is a Netflix documentary about a chef's life which was upended when a jet-setting, champagne-sipping, hotel-hopping woman claimed to be the chef's mother. This documentary reveals the untold story. There are so many things in life we just never get around to. Taking up that hobby, cleaning out the garage, the little things that don't really make huge differences in our lives. Yet, there's one thing that most of us have probably been neglecting that can have a huge impact on our family's future. It's life insurance. And with SelectQuote, getting covered with the right policy for you is easier and more affordable than you may think. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. If you have high blood pressure, no problem. If you have diabetes, that's fine too. And even if you have heart disease, SelectQuote partners with carriers that can cover those conditions and others. Head to SelectQuote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. SelectQuote, they shop and you save. So get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/realitylife. Go to SelectQuote.com/realitylife today and get started. That's SelectQuote.com/realitylife. Now, we both know that shopping for a rug can be challenging. You've either got insanely expensive handcrafted rugs or the mass-produced alternatives that won't hold up. But that's where Revival Rugs comes in. Revival's founders didn't want to spend thousands on a new rug, but they didn't want to settle for less either. Revival is a global company with teams in the U.S. as well as weaving regions in India, Turkey, and Morocco. Revival works with artisans to preserve rug-making traditions and pass on this value to you. Eliminating middlemen allows them to remove steep markups, giving you amazing value at incredible prices. And Revival's popular washable rugs have the look and feel of a real rug, so you don't have to sacrifice style for convenience. And my favorite, which I ordered, is the sweatshirt rug, and I also love the stripe rug. So spruce up your space with Revival Rugs. Visit revivalrugs.com/realitylife and use code KateCasey20 for 20% off your first order. That's revivalrugs.com/realitylife, code KateCasey20. One more time, revivalrugs.com/realitylife with code KateCasey20 to save 20%. So Graham Hornigold is a renowned British pastry chef, having spent almost 30 years honing his incredible skills in some of the finest hotels and restaurants in London. He started working with food at 14 when he got a Saturday job scraping floors and stacking bread at Usher's Bakery in St. Albans. Now, rather than paying him, the then owners bought him his first set of knives and chef's whites and sent him to catering college in Watford. He did a 10-year stint at the tutelage of Lisa Crowe at the Lygon Arms in Broadway, the Park Lane Hotel, and Mandarin Oriental, Hyde Park in London. She was his biggest influence as a chef and, quote, whipped the rebellion out of me, took me under her wing, beat me up a few times, and had a few chats. A bit like your mom, he said. She taught me about life, work ethic, organization, and the most interesting thing you can do is to understand taste. Everything else stems from that. Well, let's go back to that part about a bit like your mum. Graham was named UK Pastry Chef of the Year in 2007 and received numerous other awards. And he created Longboy's Bakery, a small batch bakery specializing in handmade finger donuts. The gripping documentary Con Mum, which is directed by Nick Green, unravels the story of Graham, who found himself reuniting with his biological mother after 45 years, and only to find himself stuck in a devastating situation. See, in 2020, at the beginning of the global lockdown, his life was actually in a great place because his career was soaring and he was about to become a father with his partner, pastry consultant Heather, with whom he fell deeply in love. Now, Graham's own childhood hadn't been easy. He was raised by a father he described as strict and abusive, and he never really knew what happened to his mother. Although her name was on his birth certificate, any attempts to find her had been fruitless. But then he received an email. Hi, Graham. I'm not sure if this is going to reach you as I've been searching for a way to contact you and found this email. My name's Dion, formerly known as Teresa Hatton Mahmoud. Graham was born in Germany before being taken away from me to England, she wrote. And at first he thought, this has to be a joke. But then he also thought, what if it were to be true? Few knew that he had been born on a military base in Germany, and how he had longed for a mother in all the big and small moments of his life, and now to think a grandmother for his son. So they decided to meet, and the reunion was joyous. Dion had enormous charisma, and he was filled with gratitude for the feeling of wholeness it brought him. And she seemed like a very successful businesswoman. She could speak 18 languages, had far-ranging companies, and had videos to prove her charitable work. She was also living an over-the-top lifestyle. At the Dorchester, she seemed to know all of the staff, and they would bring her food and champagne in spades. And she wanted to shower her son and his partner with gifts, including luxury cars. And she had also promised he would be left with a sizable inheritance. She had claimed to be the illegitimate child of royalty from the Southeast Asian nation, Brunei, hence the lucrative inheritances and business accruements. Now, the Sultan had been ranked among the wealthiest individuals of the world. As of 2003, he was said to have had a net worth of $30 billion. He's the world's longest reigning current monarch and the longest serving current head of state. And it's also notable in 1987, the Sultan of Brunei bought the Dorchester Hotel and then transferred the ownership to the Brunei Investment Agency in 1991. So it made sense to Graham that the Dorchester would do everything to accommodate Dion. She also shared she had terminal cancer. She had a brain tumor and bone marrow cancer, which left her with only a few months to live. Now, what we know is this: Dion was born in Malaysia and migrated to the United Kingdom in 1971, and Graham was born in 1974. They were spending an enormous amount of time together at that point. She had met his close friends, And when Graham's son was born, she was inserting herself in the art of raising a baby, though no one could not help but notice she had never actually raised her own son. Heather grew weary. She was exhausted, overwhelmed, and losing Graham's attention to his formerly estranged mother. Graham, however, was admittingly being brainwashed. He wanted to make the most of his lost time with his mother. She was, after all, losing her life. Graham was eventually spending days and then weeks with Dion, traveling, having luxurious hotel stays, and sitting through meetings with lawyers and bankers because she had convinced him to stay in Switzerland for weeks, and right after the birth of his son, so that he could sign paperwork to inherit what she claimed was a hefty inheritance. And she also requested he transfer monthly payments to her and establish credit cards under his name. She promised she would reimburse him, but she never did. Let's face it, weight loss can feel overwhelming. That's why Hers is changing the game. By providing access to GLP-1 medications plus expert care, they make your goals more achievable. Hers is transforming women's healthcare by providing access to affordable weight loss treatment plans delivered straight to your door if prescribed. Hers offers a holistic weight loss program with personalized solutions including compounded GLP-1 weekly injections featuring the same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy or oral medication kits. So after submitting an online intake form, a licensed medical provider will determine what plan is best for you. And if prescribed, your program includes medication, ongoing care, and online support, and all at one cost. So if you've been struggling with your weight loss journey, it's time for you to find the best option that works for you through Hers. Start your initial free online visit today at forhers.com/KateCasey. That's FORHERS.com/KateCasey for your personalized weight loss treatment options. forhers.com/KateCasey. Hers weight loss is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. Actual price depends on product and plan purchased.
Introducing Instagram teen accounts. A new way to keep your teen safer as they grow. Like making sure they always have their seatbelt on.
All right, sweetie pie, buckle up. Good job.
Or ring the bell on their bike.
Okay, kid, give it a try. Nice.
Or remember their elbow pads.
Knees too, okay? Yep. There you go.
New Instagram teen accounts. Automatic protections for who can contact your teen and the content they can see.
However, suspiciously, these meetings seemed to land nowhere. And then she started asking him for money, just until her own funds would open up because, after all, she had so many businesses. Now, Heather, she could see how much was leaving the accounts, and horrified to realize that they actually owed money on the cars that they were gifted. Graham would eventually accumulate more than $300,000 worth of debt. And remember she said she was sick? She had pretended to have blood in her urine, but it was food coloring. And all the pills that she kept in her bag were for diabetes and things like high blood pressure. Now, Heather attempted to go to the police, but it bore no real result, because at 80 years old, authorities didn't believe she fit the description of a con artist. Since Dion was related to the chef too, her actions can't legally be labeled a fraud. So as such, the family had to just accept the fallout of this devastating situation. And Heather moved to New Zealand with their son, and their relationship forever damaged. Heather's own investigation revealed Dion had been married 3 times, and her name had changed. She had previous convictions for shoplifting and establishing property under deception. And she'd also never paid most of those hotel bills, even tried to make payments with fake diamonds. And the real question was Dion his actual mother? She seemed to avoid a DNA test. And there were others she was scamming at the same time. She'd been charismatic and giving, and then was not. And how did she know so many details about his birth? So around a year after the reunion, she returned to Malaysia and attempted to apologize to Graham over a phone call, but he hasn't spoken with her since. And that DNA test, it revealed she was actually, in fact, his mother, which almost felt more painful knowing she was capable of scamming her own son. He suspected that the COVID lockdown left her desperate, so no better time than to reach out to her seemingly successful son. She has never faced criminal charges and her whereabouts remain unknown. So how did Graham get duped? Well, he was at a vulnerable place. Con artists often target vulnerable individuals that are experiencing emotional distress, using psychological manipulation and deceptive tactics to gain trust and exploit them for financial or other gains, as I said. So Graham had significant emotional distress as a child, and it was an unhealed wound. It was at the height of COVID when everyone's world was turned upside down. People experiencing grief, fear, or loneliness are more vulnerable to manipulative tactics, as they may be more likely to seek comfort or reassurance. Psychology today says that con artists have one thing in common: the power of persuasion to swindle their victims, because they exhibit psychopathy, the narcissism, and the Machiavellism, which have been referred to psychologists as those dark personality traits. So those characteristics allow con artists to swindle people out of their money without feeling their remorse or their guilt. I have empathy for Graham because I've had my own estranged parent contact me. But for me, it was at age 32, and I was pregnant. And your immediate reaction is of deep happiness met with mourning, because you're suddenly confronted with the promise of the very person who ripped a hole in your life, filling it back up. This is a profoundly fascinating documentary and a for certain conversation starter. Again, you can watch Con Mom now on Netflix. I highly recommend it. And as always, make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast. Make sure that you leave a 5-star review. Please jump in the Facebook group, Reality Life with Kate Casey. What to watch list is at katecasey.substack.com. And the bonus episodes you can get at Patreon, patreon.com/KCasey. And follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at @KCCA, TikTok, it's KCasey, and Twitter Threads and Blue Sky at @KCasey. Check back tomorrow for an all-new episode.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone? Like yesterday. With Indeed, there's no need to stress. You can find amazing candidates fast using Sponsored Jobs. With Sponsored Jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people you want faster. And just how fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to the Indeed data worldwide. Seriously, there's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/WonderyUS. Just go to Indeed.com/WonderyUS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/WonderyUS. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.